Hey Pennsylvania, it's wine o'clock on Wine Time PA. Join Rob, Holly, and Steve as they explore their home state of Pennsylvania and all the wonderful wineries it has to offer. Each month, they take a journey tasting the wines of PA. If you're able, pour a glass of your favorite wine and join us now for Wine Time.
And welcome to Wine Time PA. I'm one of your hosts, Holly, and today I'm joined with my co-hosts, my husband, Steve.
Hello.
And our good friend, Rob.
Cheers.
For those new to our podcast, welcome. If you're wondering what this podcast is about, it's about Pennsylvania wines. We are three everyday wine drinkers on a quest to visit the nearly 400 wineries that our home state has to offer. In each episode, we talk about a winery we visited and discuss some of the basic information about the winery and what our favorite wines were. Our goal is to not only give you information for planning your own visit, but hopefully encourage you to try some new wines from our state. In this episode, we will be discussing Bella Terra Vineyards. We'll be discussing a visit to their main location, which is located in the town of Hunker, which is about 35 miles southeast of Pittsburgh, if you're wondering. This was actually our first time visiting this particular location, but they do have two other locations. The one is a wine cellar in Allison Park, and the other is in the town of Bedford. And we actually did visit the Bedford location. I think it was 2 years ago or so. If you guys think that was wrong, let me know. I think it was 2 years ago.
Well, that was you. I didn't visit that.
Yeah, you were with us.
Did I?
Yeah.
You were with us.
I think we went there on a wine trip.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a little too much wine this weekend, folks. Anyway, either way, we've seen them at wine shows before, so we were a little familiar with their wines. But today we're going to be talking about our visit from the main winery in Hunker, and it was in 2005, late March that we visited. So that's when all the information. 2025. Yeah, wow, geez. So that's all the information we started today. Maybe I had too much wine too. All right, so quick notes. The winery is open 7 days a week, and you don't need a reservation to visit. However, you can make one, and I would consider it, especially if you're visiting them when they have an event happening or if you're traveling from a distance. And also, you'll need a reservation if you're interested in one of their igloos, but we'll talk a little bit more about those igloos in a few minutes. So, Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the winery, the setting, and what you thought of it?
Sure. Yeah, we'll talk about the setting of what you can expect at their main location. When you arrive, you'll see this big white building. It's a modern industrial feel to it. There's lots of outdoor space with seating options and even a stage that they probably use in the warmer seasons for outdoor concerts. However, on our visit, it was raining and kind of cool that day, so we weren't able to take advantage of that wonderful outdoor seating, but there was plenty of it to be had. There's also lots of seating just throughout the grassy areas on the property. They also had a nice pond outside, and they even had some pergolas with seating next to it. They also have a nice covered patio area with tables and chairs, but of course, we did not partake in that one with the rain falling that day. However, the big thing you will notice if you're there between the months of November and March is our outdoor igloos that Holly had previously mentioned. These are clear plastic igloos that were used during the pandemic and were such a huge hit that they decided to put them outside during the colder months. They can seat up to 8 people with tables, chairs, and even a heater to keep you warm. Now, you will need an advance reservation for these, and they cost $50, and that is for 2 hours of use. And also note that $50 is a rental fee, so you don't get anything for that, and it's non-refundable.
Yeah, I think you just pay the $50 to get the thing. But I think it's kind of cool, though. Like, we didn't do it, but I looked at one of them, and I think that could be something fun to consider doing, as a former event planner. Maybe if you're going there for a special occasion, like a bachelorette party or something, that could be a fun way, if it's in the warmer month, I think, to spruce up, your visit a little bit, and it can be something kind of fun and different.
And it can also give you a little bit more private time with friends or family.
It'd be really nice if it was like really heavily snowing. Imagine that.
Oh, yeah.
I can bet it would be beautiful in the snow if you're lucky enough to get it then.
Now, inside the building is where you get that modern industrial feel to it. They have high ceilings, concrete floors, wooden tables, and metal chairs. And there are a couple of rooms that they have for seating. One of the rooms has a bunch of wine barrels in it, which was really cool. It had their logo right there on the end of the barrels. Just really nice to see.
It was a nice display.
They also have another indoor room with a stage, which is where we sat, and they had live musician playing there. And he was pretty good when we were there, playing some great music.
Mm-hmm.
It's also worth noting that when you first walk inside, there's a really big bar area. You will check in there and also do all your ordering from there. So after you get seated at a table, you will notice a table number in the center. You walk up to the bar and give them your table number, and then you place your order there. They will bring your stuff right to your table when it's ready. Overall, the winery offers lots of space, it's nicely designed, and a place that you can hang out for a few hours, as we did that day.
Yeah, a few hours, especially with good live music going on. So, and they do have live music quite often, in fact. Definitely check out their website. They do a bunch of other events there, including paint and sips every Wednesday evening. They do bingo, trivia, country wine dancing, 5Ks, bridal showers, all kinds of events. So check out their website. Make sure they're not doing something too big on the day you're going to be there if you don't want large crowds. Or they might have a great band that you're interested in hearing. In terms of the wine, when we visited, they had 30 items on their tasting sheet, and they were broken down as follows. They had a dry category with 12 wines. They had a sweet category with 11 listed. 6 were wines, but then they also had 3 ciders and 2 wine cocktails. They had 6 other items that were listed in a before they go category. 5 were wines and 1 was a wine cocktail. I imagine this list changes, with their inventory levels throughout the year. For tasting flights, you can either pick 4 wines in a custom flight, or they have multiple preset wines that give you a few bucks off your order. The flights are really generous 3-ounce pours, which is kind of one of the highest we've seen from any winery, and it worked out great for us because we share our flights, so that gave each of us a nice solid ounce to try.
Yeah, those are really nice sample sizes.
Yeah.
I can concur.
Yeah, the tastings cost a little bit more than other wineries, but you get a substantial amount more wine for that.
Yeah, you definitely got your money's worth.
Next to each wine, you might see the word estate, which basically just means the grapes were grown there on their property as part of Bella Terra. The rest of their wines they will outsource some juice, mostly from other places in Pennsylvania, sometimes from outside of Pennsylvania. However, all of their wines contain at least 85% of the juice originating from Pennsylvania. This keeps all their wines qualifiable for different PA wine judging events. They also offer wine slushies for all of those who love them. That's us in the summer for sure.
Yeah.
But you can't add those to your custom flights. Although sometimes they'll give you a little sample if you're really curious about one. In fact, we tried the butterbeer one, which I thought was actually really fascinating.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. I was excited because I think I think they just done like Harry Potter trivia a few days further there, so I think that's probably why they had a butterbeer flavored one. But I thought it was pretty tasty, and I think it's cool too. I mentioned that when you said the custom flights that you can do a cider or a cocktail as on your flight too.
Yeah, that's interesting. Obviously, that's not part of our...
Not the slushy though. Yeah, but the butterbeer one, that was cool. I was glad we got to be there to try that.
Yeah, for anybody that's ever gone to Universal Studios and had their frozen butterbeer, it really had that same similar feel. They did a really good job getting the flavors right.
If you're there with other people, or maybe yourself, you're not interested in wine, they do offer some hard seltzers and beer for you to drink as well. They had about 6 beers on draft to pick from, as well as a few bottles and the can options. They also had some nice spirits and offered some mixed drinks, truly something for everyone if you're not there just for some wine. You are not allowed to bring outside food or drinks, but no worries. They also offer food and had quite a good selection. They had some appetizers, sandwiches, salads, flatbreads, even some dessert. I know Steve and I both had the burger there, and honestly, maybe it was because I was really hungry that day, but that burger was really good. And the fries that they had with it had this nice salt and pepper seasoning to it. It was really tasty.
Yeah, those were some good burgers.
Yeah, I didn't get the burger. I had a turkey sandwich. It was like a hot turkey melt or something, but it was really, really tasty as well. I loved it. It was on that nice brioche bun too, and it came with those fries, and it was a really good sandwich. So yeah, Steve had to bite too.
I took a bite. It was good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the food there. I thought it was really tasty.
Yeah, and I noticed one of the neighboring tables, somebody ordered a flatbread, and that looked and smelled really good too.
Really good.
So if you're going to be there, they have plenty of food offerings for you if you're coming hungry. They also have something called a gathering menu. It's for larger groups, and it's stuff that you have to order a few days in advance, but they're good options if you're going to be there with a larger group. And they also offer brunch on Sundays.
I love a good brunch. And I think it's worth noting the other location offers food as well. Like at least the one in Bedford when we went there. I remember we ate lunch there that day. It was in downtown Bedford, which if you've never been, downtown Bedford is a very cute little historic town. And we sat outside. It was a summer day and we ordered some food. Rob's smiling. You remember
the light bulb came back on. Now I remember the visit down there.
The visit there, yes. Well, in fairness, we've been to another winery or two before we went there, so I can see.
And I probably worked that morning or something. So
that also was 2 years ago, and I don't know how many wineries we have gone to in the last 2 years, but it's a big number.
Yeah. So, but yeah, anyway, they also have some good food worth checking out as well if you're in the Bedford area. Okay, so let's move on to the good part where we talk about the wines themselves. In this part, we're going to be discussing the wines that we tasted, and each of us has narrowed it down to our top 3 favorites. These wines are our own recommendations based on our own personal preferences. We are not being paid or endorsed by anyone to recommend these wines. We give these for those of you whose taste palates may align with our own, or maybe for those of you to want an idea of something that you might want to try that's new. However, we always say when it comes to wine, don't worry about what other people think, just drink what you love. So, Steve, why don't you start us off today and tell us what your number 3 pick was?
Yeah, would love to. But first, I'd like to say, if somebody wants to pay me for my opinion,
Yeah.
No, just kidding. I'm going to pick their Rosa. So this is a red blend, and it's at the bottom of their dry list, so I'm kind of guessing it's a semi-dry. It kind of felt that way, and it drank that way as well. It had just this really nice aroma to start. It was fruity with some black raspberry and currant, some like darker red fruits, just really smooth into the finish, and then it had this really distinct raisin taste in the finish. And not like a grape, but like, seriously, like a raisin, like you get in a Fig Newton or something. It was fascinating. I've never tasted that in a wine before. And it rounded out real nice.
Yeah, that was a really nice wine and a good pick, Steve.
Yeah, I remember the raisin. I got it too. I was like, wow, there's raisins. I got the raisin fail. So I wasn't surprised when you said you liked it because I think I tried it before you and I thought this seems like something Steve might enjoy. So my number 3 pick, ironically, feels like it should be a Steve pick, but it's not. It's a Holly pick, and that's the Sweet Finley. And it's a rosé, and it is a sweet wine, and it's a blend of Niagara and Concord. And, for those of you in the past who've listened a million times, that's the 2 grapes that they used to make grape juice a lot of. Steve loves Concords. Rob's been picking a lot of Niagaras lately. So this is kind of weird that I picked a wine that blends them together. But it was sweet, but I didn't think it was overly sweet. It was definitely enough where I could enjoy a glass or 2, maybe not a whole bottle at once, but I did like it. Had a beautiful pink color. It tasted like biting into a grape, and it was just really nice, fruitful blend of the 2 wines. And again, if you like sweeter wines or you're not afraid to experiment with sweeter wines occasionally, I think this is one that you should give a shout out to or try when you're there.
Yeah, I did really actually like this. There were just a few others that day that really just struck my palate, so I didn't pick it. But yeah, I thought it was a great summer wine. It was really smooth, even though I had those competing grape flavors. And it was sweet, but it wasn't overly sweet.
Yeah.
Be a nice sipping wine on the summer day.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked that one because I contemplated picking that myself. Yeah. I don't go for the sweeter wines that often, but man, Concord and Niagara, especially blended together like this one, man, that was just so good.
Yeah.
But for my number 3 pick, viewers or listeners, hope you're sitting down because I am going way off script on this pick. And I mean way off script. I'm picking their Estate Chardonnay.
Oh,
that was Holly fainting. That was Holly fainting because I notoriously am not a big fan of Chardonnays.
Yeah, even the good ones you don't like.
Sure, I could drink a glass. You put one in front of me, or if I'm at a wedding or something, yeah, I'll drink one. But I don't seek Chardonnays in my visit. But there was just something special about their Estate Chardonnay. Now, I'm saying it as Estate Chardonnay because they actually have 2 on their menu. There's an Estate, which is a unoaked Chardonnay, and then they just have a regular Chardonnay, which I believe is oaked. So there is a difference in their 2 Chardonnays. So the Estate, as Holly, I believe, mentioned earlier, just means that they do grow those grapes on their property here. And their other one, again, is an oaked variety, but this one is their unoaked Estate variety. There was just that buttery taste you get with Chardonnays that, for me, just wasn't overwhelming. And I was even getting some hints that it was like a buttery popcorn. when I took a second or third sip of the wine. But there was also some smoothness and sweetness about it, maybe some vanilla or cream in there. There was even maybe some hints of, I don't know if it was some acidity or like coffee or something in the taste. But man, just everything that I thought I knew about Chardonnays went out the window when I tried this one. And my third pick is an estate Chardonnay.
It's funny, I sometimes have liked some Chardonnays when we visited places, but it's not one that any of us tend to pick. Honestly, let's be honest here. Like none of us. Steve.
I picked one once.
Occasionally.
Steve picked one once that he liked, and I think I had mentioned one time, and maybe an honorable mention. But ironically, we're moving to number 2 picks, and this is my number 2 pick. Was a Chardonnay estate. I enjoyed it as well. Like. Usually for me, Chardonnay, again, is fine. I don't drink it often, but there's something unique about it. But this one was unique, and that's what I liked about it. When I smelled it, I got that coffee hint, too, with, like, vanilla creamer. So I thought I liked coffee with vanilla creamer. And then as I was drinking it, I got the vanilla in taste, but I also picked up some, like, bread or yeast notes. So to me, it was kind of like a breakfast in a glass, I was thinking. Like, it was like breakfast in there, which it did. It made it unique. And there was something about the Chardonnay that was so unique that, like, I think you and I just kept going back with like the our ounce because we share them, like I was like, okay, who's finishing this one? because there was something about this Chardonnay that was just different that I really liked and jumped out at me. And so, yeah, I ended up making it my number 2 pick because I just enjoyed it really thoroughly.
This might be the first time we've overlapped on a pick too.
I think there was one other. Maybe the Sangiovese that one time.
Maybe, yeah.
But yeah, that we've never overlapped on a Chardonnay.
Not on a Chardonnay though.
So.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
If I had to say you two are going to overlap, that's not the wine I picked. All right, so for my number 2, I'm going to go way off script too. I'm going to pick their Merlot.
Yes.
Wow.
Getting lightheaded.
Yeah, I generally just don't like Merlot. I don't know why I don't, but so this is obviously it's a dry red. I do believe this Merlot is unoaked. If it wasn't unoaked, it's just a touch of oak. And I think that's actually why I enjoyed it a lot more. I don't like a lot of those flavors that oak imbues into red wines. It had a nice mild aroma. It had some good plum in the beginning. Maybe some other, like a touch of red fruits as well. It had just a tiny bit of like a peppery in the finish. It had really high tannins in the finish. It was really nice and dry, which complemented those sweet fruits in the beginning, even though it didn't taste sweet. This was just a really nice, smooth Merlot, and I could drink a bottle of this. I tried it because I try everything, but I was just really pleasantly surprised by this one.
Yeah, I really like the Merlot too. I honestly, again, this Merlot's going to be Rob's pick, and I'm sure he'll chime in here in a second with his thoughts on it. But I really like this one too, and I was surprised. I think out of all the dry reds I tried that day, it was my favorite, and that's odd for me.
That's very odd.
When it comes to dry reds, I do like some dry reds, but usually it's more of like a Cab Sauv or a Malbec or a Petit Syrah or something. So for me, that was the standout dry red for me. It was really good. It was probably would have been my honorable mention had you not picked it.
Yeah, and I have to say I agree. I thought this was their best dry red. I actually got to a point where so many of them I was given the same rankings and the same scoring. I'm like, I tried each of them individually, one after another, so I could narrow down which one was my favorite. And that's actually why the Rosa came in third, because I basically rated them equal, but the Merlot won out just a little bit.
This was a really fabulous Merlot.
Yeah.
It ranked really high on my list. I was contemplating whether it was my number 3 or number 4 pick. There is a dry red that I thought was better, which I will get to in a minute, but no, this was a good Merlot, and all the things you said about it, Steve, is spot on. And I do believe it was an unoaked. So that's probably why you liked it more. I as much as I like oaked Merlots, as for an unoaked, this was really good. Now, for my number 2 pick, I'm going to steal one from Holly's normal lists.
We're all switching around today.
And that is their Gruner Veltliner.
Yeah, that's a good choice. That was a good wine.
So that's one that I know Holly tends to pick often, and it's certainly a wine that's moving up quickly on my list of wines that I like. For those who aren't familiar, it's a dry white. It had a nice balance of that fruity citrus notes in the beginning, maybe some like grapefruits, and then it, finished nicely with some acidity at the end. Wasn't too acidic, but wasn't, calm in the acidity. Surely a crowd pleaser for anyone who likes these dry whites. Very versatile, compare with a lot of foods, chicken, fish, even spicier things like Mexican or Thai food. And according to their website, This was aged slowly and at cool temperatures in stainless steel tanks to preserve its bright citrusy characteristics. Additional aging helps to bring out the wine's distinctive spicy white pepper aromas and flavors. So it's a wine that's quickly moving up my list of wines that I'm liking, and they had I thought, a really good Gruner at Bella Terra.
I'm slowly converting all of you into. Well, I think we're all actually kind of converting each other a little bit into.
Well, I'm converting you guys to the dry red.
to the things.
I've just always liked everything.
Yeah. But it was a good Gruner. I think I had it on my short list too, as I was kind of narrowing down my top 3. I basically had narrowed it down to 5. The 3 I'm talking about, the Merlot and this Gruner. So they were in there. So yeah, it was good wine. It was a good Gruner. All right, are we ready for number 1 picks?
I think so.
All right. Well, Rob, why don't you just kick us off with one?
All right. I'm going back to my tried and true with the dry red wine. Not the Merlot, but the Lemberger. Now, this isn't an overly common varietal of grape, but we have seen a couple of them in our adventures across the state. As I said, it's a dry red. So starting off, with the deep end pick of the Chardonnay, I'm returning home to tried and true dry red for Rob here. If you're not familiar with the Lemberger, it's very similar to a Pinot Noir. So if you do like Pinot Noirs, I would highly recommend you trying out the Lemberger. And this is another one of their estate grapes. They do grow this on property. And boy, this was just a wildly complex wine. And that's in a good way, with lots of different things playing around in your senses. I got some hints of some like leather and smokiness in the aroma. There were some nice fruity notes in the beginning, maybe like some red cherry, or I don't know, maybe it's raspberry or even blueberry. Or there was some kind of fruity berry in that beginning sip there. But then it had that nice light amount of pepperiness and finished with a nice amount of tannins at the end. Just really, again, a silky smooth to drink especially for a full-bodied wine. Now, I also want to note that after we finished this sample, I noticed there was a fair amount of sediments left over in the glass, which just brings to light how well crafted this wine is. Now, sediments in a glass are often a good thing to have, especially in those dry reds. It can show off the depth and complex structure of a bold, full-bodied red that has been well aged. And sometimes winemakers, I've noted that they will purposely leave those sediments in there just to help bring out some of those flavors when you're drinking it. Now, we didn't particularly ask them if that was done on purpose or not. I didn't really think that was quite appropriate during our visit there. So we didn't get to see how long this was aged, but man, this was just a really surprising wine for me. And it's the Lemberger for my number 1 pick.
Yeah, I can tell you really liked it. I feel like I've tried some Lembergers, and I'm not sure what I think of them just yet, to be completely honest. That's kind of where I am with them. But I know I didn't dislike it, but I didn't go like you know what I mean? Like, it was just something that I was like in the middle with it. I was neutral. I'm neutral about it.
They've been hit or miss for me, but this one was a grand slam. Yeah. I mean, it was out of the park.
Yeah, I remember thinking it was pretty decent, too. I think I remember getting a little bit of tobacco in the taste, and I really just don't like tobacco. So just that little bit just kind of threw it off, so it wasn't one of my favorites, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, all this talk about dry reds. I haven't had a dry red in a while. I might have to get one. Like I said, I was such a big dry red drinker years ago, and I've kind of converted to these dry whites. But so my number 1 pick is a dry white, and it's the Blanc de Blanc, and that is their sparkling wine. And I tend to be the one out of the group that likes sparkling wines the most. And it was made with their Chardonnay grape. Hey, so Chardonnay twice, I guess. Really. And this definitely had a very classic champagne or sparkling wine taste. I know you can't call it champagne unless it comes from the Champagne region of France, but it had that classic champagne taste that you would expect. Like if you go to a wedding and there's a glass on your table, you had in there. But this one was just better than just like your average. There's something really fun about it. I think it had a really nice fruit in the start, and I even got a little kick of something in the end, maybe a little spice. I put maybe ginger. I couldn't tell, but there was something in there in the spice at the end I liked. But yeah, I thought it was a really nice wine, and I really, really loved it. It was my number 1 pick.
Yeah, I enjoyed that too. It was a pretty good, like a dry sparkling.
Yeah.
I'm not a sparkling fan, and I don't want to say anything bad about it, but for me, the sparklingness was just overwhelming, and so I wasn't able to pick out some.
Should have shooken it up and get.
I should have maybe, but I couldn't get any of those distinct flavors. I was just getting overwhelmed with the bubbles.
Yeah, so I like the bubbles, but yeah, if you like sparklings, I think this is one that you should definitely try because it was really tasty. All right, I think Steve's the last one to go for his number 1 pick.
So I'm gonna pick the Winter Bella.
Good pick.
And you can
Great
call
pick.
it the Winter Bella because it is from the Winter Bella part of Pennsylvania. No, I'm just kidding. So this is their like holiday spiced wine. And early on we said that there were like 6 in a get them before they go category. This is one of them. I actually bought 2 bottles of wine because I wanted to have more later on. The aroma of this was actually just completely amazing. So even before I took my first sip, I just absolutely enjoyed it. I even kept smelling the empty glass after we were done because the aroma was just spectacular.
It was good.
It had a really nice smell.
Yeah, my notes even said best smell ever. So it was nice because it was this lighter bodied. So even though it was on that sweeter side, it didn't drink like it was too sweet or too sugary. It had this nice blend of cinnamon, vanilla, and fruit. And kind of when I saw that, I'm like, how are those going to play together in a wine? But the balance was perfect. And it just made drinking this wine a delight. In fact, I had some this morning with breakfast. It was really unique, and I just loved it. And this might actually be like my favorite spiced holiday wine that I've ever had. And there's some good ones out there.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm going to have to pick another honorable mention because that was a really good wine. And yeah, that cinnamon, like we had it chilled, but man, I think even warmed up would be even better, which says a lot about this wine, how good it was even chilled.
Yeah, we've got 1 glass left of the first bottle. I might just have to like heat that up and try it. Because I agree.
Give it 5. We need a couple more minutes to finish recording here.
So we're going to try it warm. Yeah, I really liked it too. I thought it was a really good spiced wine. I just laugh because Steve. I always say your face was so cute. Like Rob and I had both tried it. And we're like, oh, this is really good. And then we gave it to Steve. Because we were already commenting about the smell and stuff. So we gave it to Steve. He smelled, and his eyes went from like barely open to wide, and he had this big smile, and you could just tell. And then when you tried it, you could just see your face light up. You could just tell that it was just, to me, it was fun to see when you see a wine bring somebody joy visibly on their face. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, because you just loved it that much. And yeah,
fun wine.
Yeah, it was a fun wine.
I want that aroma in a candle.
Yeah.
All right, so some honorable mentions. I'm going to mention one first, and I wanted to mention this one because, like, my couple we talked about, were taken, but I'm going to mention the Diamond Rio, and it is a sweet wine, and I'm going to say when I first took it and, like, took a sip of it, I was like, nope, this is too sweet. I was like, put it down. So I sat the glass on. Then the finish hit me, and it was all tropical fruit notes of like pineapple and coconut. And I love tropical fruits, especially pineapple. And that aftertaste just had me going back for more. Like, this is one of those wines I might not drink a lot, but I could easily just keep sipping on it on a summer day next to a pool. So if you like sweet wines, I would recommend giving this one a whirl.
Talking about face changes, your face changed when that after flavors kicked in. Because you put it down and you were like, no, and then all of a sudden your eyes lit up with that back taste.
Yeah, because I was like, no, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah,
you don't always like overly sweeter wines, but when you do, it's because they have pineapple in them.
Yeah.
So for mine, I'm going to pick the Penny Lane, which seems to be one of their newer ones according to their menu. It's listed with the sweets, but it was at the top of the list, so I'm kind of guessing it was more of a semi-sweet. And it just had this nice fruity star, really smooth, and it had this interesting drier finish, despite it being a sweeter wine. And it was unique, and it was nice to drink.
I'll shout out the Duval. It was a blend of their Concord, Niagara, and Catawba, which is really interesting because, we've had, and in fact, one of us picked already the Concord Niagara blend, but this, they threw in some Catawba grape in there. So it wasn't super sweet. I think the Catawba helped pare down some of that sweetness, but it was just another enjoyable mixed wine that, sort of like a sangria even, had a lot of fruitiness going on there. It's the Duval.
Yeah, and interesting, I didn't notice a Catawba on their menu, but when I was drinking that Winter Bella, I was like, I think the base of this is Catawba.
Then maybe.
I put that in my notes as a question mark, and I forgot to ask them.
Yeah.
So I'll kick us off with some of their best-selling and award-winning. We found an interview online where the owner said that the Blanc de Blanc,
Yay!
the Sweet Finley,
Yay!
and the Winter Bella, yay, are their most popular wines, and I have to say we know why.
Yeah.
Those are all really good.
Yeah.
They were really good.
They're two of my picks are on that list. Mm-hmm.
Their award-winning was mostly their Estate Merlot, which was in the top 10 of the PA Sommelier Judgment last year. And yeah, I think we all agreed that was a stellar wine, and even if you don't like Merlot, you should give this one a shot, even if it's just a little sample.
Yeah.
They have mentioned their estate reds do tend to receive the most recognition in competitions as well. And to be honest, I rated all of their dry reds pretty high. Only one of them made my list, but they were all really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did do some good wines. All right. Well, let's wrap up this episode then. In summary, Bella Terra Vineyard had a very nice winery atmosphere that not only offered some nice Pennsylvania wines to try, they also offer some delicious food, live music, and other community events to consider checking them out. If you can't make it to their main location, we do recommend checking out the Bedford one, now that Rob remembers we've been there as well. And we haven't been to the third location, but I'm sure it's just as nice as the other two based on our experiences. For more information about Bella Terra, head to their website, bellaterravineyards.com, or find them on social media. And while you're on social media, we would love it if you would find us on Instagram or Facebook under Wine Time PA and give us a follow. You can also help this podcast grow by liking and subscribing to it and sharing it with others. Tune in the first Wine Wednesday of next month as we discuss another Pennsylvania winery. Cheers!
Thanks for listening to Wine Time PA with your host Rob, Holly, and Steve. We hope you enjoyed our take on Pennsylvania wineries and all that they have to offer. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast. Also, be sure to follow them on social media for updates and news. Remember, when it comes to wine, drink what you love.